Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 160 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. So here's the funny thing about Power Rangers. It's an American television show, currently being filmed in New Zealand, that is based off of a Japanese property, Super Sentai. We all know this. We are fans of the series. It's kind of the bread and butter of being a Power Ranger fan is to know this information. But the weird thing is that Saban, and of course by extension the series, doesn't actively acknowledge its Japanese roots, or within the context of the series, doesn't really acknowledge Japan. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's talk about Power Rangers Ninja Steel, which is the next series after Power Rangers Dino Supercharge. And tried to look for the original press release, and I looked at a bunch of different sources, but I couldn't find specifically what I was looking for. So if I'm a little off on this, please let me know in the comments below. But when Power Rangers Ninja Steel was announced, basically what we got is it would be the next season of Power Rangers, and that we would have Zycron, or wherever the villain is, intergalactic game show, and the Power Rangers have to go ahead and stop them. That was pretty much the gist of it. But nowhere in the actual press release by Saban did they mention that this season would be adapted from the Ninja from Japan. That information was thrown into us by everybody who was writing an article about it, because, as part of journalism, supposedly, is to actually do research on things like this. That when Power Rangers Ninja Steel is coming out, and you know the history of Power Rangers, and it's based on a Japanese product, you want to find out, what season is this one going to be based off on? Oh, this thing called Ninja, I should put that in the article, because that's something that's worthwhile. Saban doesn't do that. Even if you go to the Saban brand's website or the official PowerRangers.com, there is no mention of adapting it from the Super Sentai franchise. That's completely absent from any of their materials, and as a company, I don't understand why they do that. I don't see why they feel the need to never acknowledge the fact that it comes from Japan. We all know it comes from Japan. When the series first came out in 1993, we had no idea that was the case, and, people didn't report on it because maybe they didn't know, they didn't have enough research. Why Saban wouldn't say it's based off Zyuranger back in the day, who knows? But basically, Saban doesn't want to acknowledge that it's from Japan. Whatever, fine, that's their decision. It's a backwards decision, but that's the decision that they've made. But where this becomes problematic, for me at least, is when we actually look at the Power Rangers series, which has had a team of Ninja Rangers, a second team of Ninja Rangers with a Samurai Ranger, a Samurai team of Rangers, and now we're about to go on another team of Ninja Rangers with, again, Ninja Steel coming next year. The franchise doesn't seem to know what it's talking about. That the series doesn't understand anything about ninjas, samurai, Japan, or anything. And because it doesn't know anything, it doesn't acknowledge any of that within the series. So this is going to be kind of a broad and reaching topic right here. It's going to span the entire franchise. And I'm going to be as concise, as on target and accurate as I can here. But as with me, I will tend to ramble and go off in multiple directions. But the point I want to start with you guys here is that basically Power Rangers doesn't know what a ninja is. It doesn't know what a samurai is. It doesn't know what Japan is. And it doesn't bother to explain any of that to the audience, which I feel is to the detriment. Okay, let's go all the way back to the third season, and let's see kind of where we were within the makeup of Power Rangers at this time. So, first season, 1993, based off Zyuranger. The premises start up in the first episode that they are all based on dinosaurs. That's where they're getting their powers from. Awesome, cool, whatever. The powers come from the power coins, which of course Zed and Alpha just found. When we get to the second season, the Dinozords are gone. They still have the dinosaur powers, but they upgraded them to the Thunder Zords, more powerful Zords that were built from the templates of their Dinozords. Green Ranger lost his powers. They created a new White Ranger to fit with the new Zords that they made. Fine and dandy. We get to the third season, and we're going to talk about the movie, but let's talk about the in-show continuity first. The Rangers' power coins are destroyed. The Thunder Zords are destroyed. They have to go on a quest for new powers, which leads them to the Desert of Despair, leads them to Ninjor, and the revelation that Zordon never actually created the original powers, but he found them. And there is another set of coins created by Ninjor that embody the spirit of ninja. Okay. And with this, they get new ninja suits, they get ninja powers, they get ninja Zords, they eventually get Shogun Zords, and we have all this influx of Japanese terminology into the series, into the third season, where suddenly that actually becomes important to go ahead and talk about. But when we switch to Thunder Zords, that wasn't something that we actually talked about. And here's where I have the problem with it. We know the Thunder Megazord is based off of course, it comes from Die Ranger. It resembles a samurai. But for whatever reason, at the time, they didn't feel the need to point out that the Megazord is based off of a samurai. It looks like a samurai's armor. It was just an aesthetic that they had because they designed new Zords. And of course, nothing about Power Rangers up to that point was even about, about samurai. Of course, it wasn't even about dinosaurs. That was just kind of something they have. It's not like Batman, where the bat is his entire motif, and of course, in some continuities, his inspiration, the bat flying through the window and all that, it was just something they had because it's what Zordon found. That's what they kind of worked with. You find the power ring and you become Green Lantern, not based on any type of mythology or anything based in your real life. It's just that you have that power, that's what it is, and you have to go ahead and roll with it. They had Dinozords, so their suits looked like dinosaurs. Just roll with it, you gotta go on with it. They had the opportunity to change it, and they changed it into, Thunderzords, mythological beasts. And of course, that was all fine up until the third season, where we got introduced to the ninja powers, and then we got the ninja costumes, which I never liked, to be quite honest. But here's where it becomes problematic for me, is that they introduce Ninja Zords, Shogun Zords, Ninja Ranger powers, a character called Ninjor, and of course villains called Tangas, which are based on Tengu, which again we'll get to the movie here in a second. And you have all these different Japanese elements that are thrown to the third season, but for seemingly no purpose. Now, I believe that in a good written story, or well written story, excuse me for my grammar there, in a well written story, you would incorporate an explanation of ninja. You would incorporate an explanation of Shogun within the series. You would explain what a ninja is, what a ninja does, and why they have ninja powers, and why they are based off of that. None of that is touched upon within the third season. They have ninja powers, they have ninja suits, they have ninja Zords. That's it. And the only explanation we get is that they're based on the swift and cunning of the ninja. Okay? Alright. Trivia time. What is a ninja? Seriously, before Googling it or anything, what is a ninja? Probably don't know, for the majority of people out there. I'd like to think that my audience is a little bit more educated and has an idea what a ninja is, because I do think you guys are relatively smart out there. But I'm going to pretend I'm my 5-year-old self again. And, I'm watching the Ninja Turtles. I love the Ninja Turtles, of course, before Power Rangers come in. And if my father came up to me and said, "Hey, what's a ninja?" I would look at him and I go, "I don't know. I have no idea what a ninja is at the age of 5. My father probably has no idea what a ninja is either. Go right now and ask a 5-year-old kid, what is a ninja? What is a shinobi? What is a samurai? What is a shogun? They're not going to go ahead and know that. Because why? They are Americans, and for some reason, in my mind, we don't teach our children anything about world history until they get to high school, and typically world history is just what happened to the rest of the world as it relates to American history, basically, and particularly the Second World War, but that's a whole nother thing. You have something that people don't understand, and you're incorporating it into a television series without giving it context and explaining what it is. Ninja Turtles was able to get away with it a little bit because of the whole Hamato Yoshi subplot, coming from Japan and things like that. You had Japanese characters, so for him to train the Ninja Turtles, whether it's Splinter's Hamato Yoshi or he is the pet of Hamato Yoshi, they can still be called ninjas because they teach them the art of ninjutsu. But of course, ninjutsu is entirely different from what a ninja actually is. So, let's go into a little history lesson right here. I'm actually going to take this information off of Wikipedia because this is something that you would do now if you typed in ninja, shinobi, whatever. This is what you would go ahead and get. And yes, it is a wiki and all that, can be edited by anyone, but these are reliable sources that they are citing here. Not to mention my minor was in Japanese history and culture, so I'd like to think that I know a little bit of something, and of course, I'm living in the country right now. But basically, here is the definition we have about a ninja from Wikipedia. A ninja, or shinobi, was a covert agent or mercenary in feudal Japan. Okay, let's stop right there. Covert agent or mercenary. Now, what is a mercenary, you might ask? Well, this is also from Wikipedia. A mercenary is a person who takes part in an armed conflict who is not a national or a party to the conflict and is, I quote, motivated to take part in the hostilities by the desire for private gain. That basically means that a ninja is hired help, that they are hired goons, that they have no ideological standing in a particular conflict. It's just whoever's going to go ahead and pay me money, give me land, give me women, whatever it is. Whiskey, women, and gold, as Toby Keith would go ahead and say. That's basically what a ninja is. But it does continue here. The functions of the ninja include espionage, sabotage, infiltration, assassination, and guerrilla warfare. Now, what does that mean? That basically means that a ninja has more in common with Lee Harvey Oswald than a ninja has with a Power Ranger. Wrap your mind around that for a second here. Because what we've based the entire third season of Power Rangers on, are archetypes of upright moral standing, idealized teenager, and moral paragon, basically, is we've taken these characters and we've given them the mantle of assassins and saboteurs and mercenaries. Do you see where that doesn't really jive for people who actually know what these things are? And I'm willing to bet that the writers of Power Rangers knew what a ninja was. I'm sure they do research in Hollywood. I mean, they have books out there, right? And yes, it was based off Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger, which I have not watched on DVD yet. I finally got it. I'm going to get around to it here eventually. But the point I'm making here is that in the third season, being a ninja was significantly important for some reason. That we had to call our Zords Ninja Zords, we had to have Shogun Zords, and we had to have alternate ninja costumes. But not for a single minute did the series ever stop and say what a ninja actually is, what a ninja stands for, and how it relates to the Power Rangers. Because the third season has nothing to do with being ninjas, except it's thrown in there. The third season has more to do with the introduction of Kat and that transition and how her character is being written out of the series. Growth for other characters, all these multiple story arcs, transitioning into the Zords, and the arc that would lead us into Alien Rangers and eventually into Zeo. Nothing about ninjas has anything to do with that at all, and yet it was an important aspect of the third season that everything was ninja-oriented without explaining what the hell a ninja was. And then, now the movie, in a way, is guilty. It's guilty of the same crime, but in a way it's almost worse, because they don't even mention ninjas in the film with the exception of the Ninja Zords. When they go to Phaedos and they go to the Monolith, Dulcea basically is talking about how everybody in them has an animal spirit, and she does the little dust with the campfire and unleashes their animal spirit that manifests into multicolored ninja outfits, which they do not call ninjas in the film, but they call ninjetti, which I assume is some sort of cross between ninja and Jedi, which, again, if you actually think about it, the nerd trivia here, for those of you who might not know, Jedi, as Lucas has explained, is taken from the Japanese samurai films Jedi Geiki, which I hope I pronounced right. Again, my Japanese is horrible. To make basically the Jedi space samurai, but again, that's here nor there, and of course that's speculation. But basically, they are space Jedi, space ninjas, whatever in the series, and the whole thing is about this animal spirit that's within you, which I will remind you has nothing to do with ninjas. Animal spirits was not a thing that they were practicing with being assassins and working guerrilla warfare, although warfare with guerrillas would actually be different, of course. Um, but yeah, so the whole thing is we got ninjas in the movie, or what appear to be ninjas, and ninja zords, yet no context of what a ninja actually is. And of course, the bigger offender is that they are from space and a planet that doesn't have ninjas because that planet is not planet Japan. Okay? Because, here's what's ultimately bothering me. And I got more examples I'm going to go to, but I'm going to take a quick break to explain this in a little bit more detail. Is that Japan itself is an amazing culture. It's rich, it's deep, it goes back hundreds, thousands of years, and it's just really fascinating. And you can spend a lifetime learning about this stuff, reading about this stuff. I mean, I only got a brief overview that only consists of like 500 years, and that's still, very brief time within the entirety of Japan's history. Nevertheless, it's very unique, it's very special, and it's worth investigating. It's worth talking about because really, it's one of those things it's hard to explain. It's just awesome to go ahead and learn about. If you don't know anything about Japanese history, go ahead and learn about it. But the problem with American television shows, and again, Power Rangers is a big offender, is that it wants to take these concepts of a ninja and other Japanese things, boil it down to things that it is not, and pass it off as Japanese. The particular image people think of a ninja is somebody clad in black with a sword and throwing stars. And to a lot of people, ninja stops and ends there as this cool warrior with a sword and can throw ninja stars. That's basically what they see in it. But if you study the history of Japan and you look at ninjas and all that, it's a lot more complicated than just that, but we have this popular interpretation of it. I'm not exactly sure where the popular interpretation of ninja comes from within popular culture, but of course, in children's culture, at least, it probably started somewhere around the Ninja Turtles, if not a little bit before. But again, I don't have the exact knowledge to that. And again, when we get to later seasons, let's look at Ninja Storm, for example. What's fascinating about Ninja Storm is that it does actually mention, or visually anyway, that the series does take place in the United States on two separate occasions. One, we see a map of where Ninja Storm is basically located, which is in California of all places, and of course we see an American flag in the finale again knocked over, and it's kind of odd to think that somewhere in the California mountains there are secret ninja academies, because the closest you could get to me believing that somebody established ninja academies in California is from several immigrants who came over from Japan, came to America, and then after they got out of the concentration camps, decide, hey, let's just hide in the mountains and make ninja schools, and then we'll invite people of all creeds and colors there. Now that would be an interesting backstory, disenfranchised Japanese who were put in internment camps after Pearl Harbor and were distrusted by the American government, decided to make their own ninja clans. That would be American ninja clans at that. That would be an interesting story to follow, but we don't get that because nowhere in Ninja Storm do we talk about what a ninja is, what they stand for. And of course, we have at least two ninja academies. One is the Wind Ninja and Thunder Ninja, which I don't understand that. And of course, they have elemental powers of wind, air, land, water. Wind and air, same thing. And then we get a Samurai Ranger later in the series because the Green Ranger's mother was trained to be a samurai, a profession that has not existed in a very long time. Okay. And then we get to, let's talk about Dino Thunder really quick when they did the crossover. We all know Connor is an idiot, But he actually mentions that, aren't you ninjas supposed to be about honor and stuff like that? And of course, this is when the Wind Rangers are under the control of Lothor and whatnot. But I have another quote that I'd like to bring up from Wikipedia, which is also cited here. And I quote, the covert methods of waging irregular warfare were deemed dishonorable and beneath the samurai caste, which observed strict rules about honor and combat. So they can't even get that right. That ninjas, I'm not okay. Ninjas are dishonorable. Let's just put that blanket statement there. It's pretty much true that they had dishonorable tactics and ways of going against things. That the honorable samurai class, and of course, the samurai class is regarded about its honor. Long story. Go read a history book. That the samurai did not find good, basically. So now you have Connor, again, who's a stupid character, but is supposed to be, the voice of reason in this particular scene that we're looking at, saying that you should care about honor when honor has nothing to do with being a ninja. Okay, so, and actually, I want to bring up this point too. So one of my favorite films that I watched in college is The Last Samurai. Where The Last Samurai is actually Tom Cruise and not Saigo Takamori and all that. Well, there's this scene, and of course, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it. Go check it out. It's on Netflix. It's an amazing movie. I really love it. But there's this scene in the movie where Tom Cruise is being captured by Ken Watanabe's character, and basically Ken Watanabe's character is the fictional stand-in for the historical figure Saigo Takamori, who was indeed the last samurai, and it has to do with politics and converting from the Tokugawa era to in the Meiji Restoration and all that kind of stuff, and in this entire transitional period. Where they go from feudalism to modernity, basically, and basically Ken Watanabe's character is opposed to that. He doesn't want to submit to the will of the Meiji Restoration, basically. And we have our evil businessman character, Omura. And in the movie, because Tom Cruise's character was not able to kill him and he was captured, he decides military strength is not going to go ahead and solve this problem. So he actually hires a bunch of ninjas to go and kill the samurai. And this is our villain of the film, who hired mercenaries to assassinate a very important samurai who, in this context of the story, was the teacher of our emperor, of the Emperor of Japan, who I will remind you is the descendant of Amaterasu, who is the god of all of Japan, basically, which is why he is the villain here. So our villain using dishonorable tactics for political and financial gain to go against the mentor of God by using ninjas. The whole thing is damn dishonorable. So you see the problem in putting this with the context of Power Rangers, because the Wind Rangers and the third season Ninja Rangers never did anything like this. The closest you can get to the Thunder Rangers, but again, they were brainwashed by Lothor, who thinks he's a ninja, but again, he is not really a ninja, even in the context that we are talking about here. Nobody in Power Rangers is a true ninja. Let's also go ahead and talk about Lost in Fan Translation, which is the most annoying episode. I'm not going to say it's the worst, but it is the most annoying, where we specifically bring up that Super Sentai exists in a way, and that Japan exists in a way within the Power Ranger universe. I have a theory about that, but we're going to talk about that another time. But the whole idea here is that they're mocking Japan for how they are culturally. And what I really have a problem with there is that we don't explain anything about the Japanese culture, okay? That we are mocking them without actually knowing them. And again, this goes to public perception and lack of education. There's a great little comic meme out there, whatever, and stuff about two guys talking. And the one guy said, yeah, I lived in Japan. And the other guy goes, oh, that must have been awesome. And he has this little thought bubble where he sees Mount Fuji and cherry blossoms and Hello Kitty and Godzilla and samurai fighting and giant mecha. And that's his vision of Japan. Then we cut over to the guy who's been in Japan, and what does he see? He sees, in his mind, tall skyscrapers, the Shinkansen, business people walking around, ramen shops and 7-Elevens and things like that, gated schools and whatnot. That's what his vision is, because he's somebody who's actually been there, understands what it actually is, knowing that Japan is not a fantasy land, it's an actual place that exists in the world. And Power Rangers doesn't want to acknowledge that it's a real place, doesn't want to acknowledge its culture, doesn't want to acknowledge its history at all. And the greatest offender is damn samurai. And this is where I'm going to throw a fit of rage here, because, here's the thing. Another question: what is a samurai? Okay? What does samurai actually mean in Japanese, in Nihongo? What does samurai actually mean? Okay, samurai actually means he who serves. Because the samurai, while being a warrior, was also a bureaucrat and was controlled by regional governors like shoguns and daimyo. Okay, they had a high-class structure. But what point does samurai actually say that is Power Rangers he who serves? Because, in Shinkanger, the whole thing the series is based on, which is completely based on, samurai and Japanese culture and history and all that stuff, because it's in Japan, and it's about samurai. Not once do they explain what a samurai is, because in Shinkanger, they do explain what a samurai is, and that's why they have the lord and the vassals, and that's why they have this undying loyalty to their samurai lord. None of that is explained except for familial responsibility that's been placed on the Rangers. Linkara makes a good point of that. Go ahead and listen to what he has to say on the subject. But this series, which was a one-for-one translation of the Shinkanger script, just cross out Japanese with white person, and cross out kanji with power symbol, and cross out anything remotely Japanese and turn it into a whitewash of history, basically, doesn't acknowledge any of that whatsoever, and it's so infuriating because, again, go ask a 5-year-old kid what the hell a samurai is. What will they tell you? They're probably going to give you a wrong answer unless they're Japanese. Because, the thing is, the Japanese shows really don't need to explain what a ninja or samurai is. Because, shockingly, they actually learn what ninjas and samurai are in history class when they're in elementary school, because it's their damn history. I mean, we as Americans are taught what Minutemen are when we're in elementary school, or at least I was. But I would have to explain to my students, even my third year at the junior high school, I have to explain what a Minuteman was, because it's not their culture. It's not something that's innately in there. And if they came out with a television series about 1776 and the birth of America, all played by Japanese actors, they would have to explain that, don't you think? What a Minuteman was, who George Washington was, and stuff like that. But imagine they did that show in Japan, but never once mentioned what a Minuteman was or what it started. What if we get the next Sentai series, the 41st Sentai, something, or American Sentai Minuteman Ranger, or Minuteman, or whatever. And they don't actually explain anything about the American Revolution and expect you to understand why these Rangers look like they have musket weapons and tricorner hats, and red, white, and blue is the primary color scheme. You see what I'm saying here is that we have a lack of context because our culture doesn't recognize it for whatever reason, and because we don't recognize it, we don't try to explain it, even though we should. Because, again, let's go back to The Last Samurai, which, again, is a great movie. The reason I actually found this movie, I knew the movie existed, but I was never into it, but my professor made us watch it because it is actually very historically accurate. It really is. Everything from the conscript army to the whole changeover in the Meiji Restoration, it's very historically accurate, and I had to watch it as part of class because we were dissecting the film based on what was real and what was not, and of course Captain Algren, Tom Cruise's character, really would have been German or Russian as opposed to actually American, but again, I'm getting off on a tangent right there. But we actually had to learn those things, and, one of the first things we actually learned going into, I think it was my junior level class, after I got my introduction class, was basically what a samurai is and what it means to be samurai. I think we spent an entire class learning what a samurai was. And the thing is, had I not seen Shinkanger, and had I not actually taken this class and watched Samurai, whether I was 5 years old, 15, or 25, I would not have understood what a samurai was. because the series doesn't explain it in the context that it deserves. You know, Power Rangers Turbo had cars, okay? But that series did not lend itself to explaining what a car was, how it works, or anything like that. We had Power Rangers Time Force, which involved time travel and mutants. But we really didn't need to explore the history of time travel, Einstein's theories, and stuff like that. And of course, mutant is easily explained because it's a genetic anomaly, and they do that in the backstory when they explain everything to Wes, who of course is our viewpoint character. But I do think that in a series called Power Rangers Samurai, using a Japanese term that is not widely known or understood by Americans, particularly if you are aiming this show towards children, which they say they are, a child is not going to know what a samurai is. Most children think of Japan, but they don't think of it in the same context as probably you and I do. They probably have that idea of Godzilla in their head and giant robots and things like that. So, shouldn't it be incumbent upon the crew to or the cast and crew to explain what a samurai is and to set up the concept? Not to mention explain why Jaden, who is the leader of a samurai household and has a Japanese surname, is white? I'm sorry, that still bugs me. Yeah, he could probably have a white ancestor and all that, but it needs context. Why wasn't in the first episode that Jaden was explaining to somebody what a samurai was? And that's actually because, here's my little theories. We don't actually have a relatable point of view character who can who when it's explained to them, it's explained to us as well. We don't have a character that's in our shoes because everybody knows what a samurai is already in the series, theoretically, and thus there is no need to explain it to the audience. But they need to explain it to the audience because we need to know what the context is. Because if a child sees that, or anybody sees that, and they say, oh, a samurai is somebody who fights against demons, which is ultimately what you could boil samurai down to, they're not going to have any idea about this stuff. And when they go into a history about Japanese course in their freshman year, thinking they're going to learn all of this cool stuff, but they already know stuff because they watched anime, and I know far too many people who are like that, they're in for a rude awakening. And even the weird thing about samurai is they try to excise everything about Japan to the point that the calligraphy brushes, which is the whole damn point of the morphers, was taken out completely, so it's loses its entire meaning of calligraphy in Japanese art. And of course, when they're doing the power symbols, quote unquote, they don't explain that it's calligraphy, it's a ancient Japanese practice. Because, you could have easily written that scene to Mike, who could have been our point of view character, and say, oh, well, our power symbols are based off the Japanese kanji, and of course we have to do calligraphy to achieve them, meaning you have to do it in the right stroke order, because that's how it's activated. And I just explained the whole thing within 5 seconds right there. They could have spent 10 seconds explaining that in less detail in Samurai, and it would have made sense, and it wouldn't have hurt my head so much. So, here's the ultimate question that we have. Actually, two ultimate questions. One, does Saban actually understand anything about Japan, and will it use it to any extent? They've been ignoring it. Japan is not treated as a unique, historical, actual place within the Power Rangers universe. It's just a place to pull fantasy ideas of real people and real things that actually existed for a significant purpose that shaped the culture to this day. I mean, I can pretty much trace everything they do in the educational system here in southern Hokkaido all the way back to the Battle of Sekigahara. I can really do it. It's like 6 degrees of separation with Japanese Kevin Bacon. You can pretty much do that here. But Saban doesn't want to go ahead and do that. Why? Why don't you want to acknowledge the Japanese roots and even acknowledge that Japan is a real thing within the Power Rangers franchise? Why are we taking ninjas and making them mythical beings with supernatural powers? Why are we taking samurai and boil them down to just people who fight demons and have electric guitars? Yeah, I'm with Linkara on that one. Why are we taking things like animal spirits and saying that it's actually tied into what a ninja is and that they are swift, as opposed to actually bringing in what they were really about, which was assassinations, espionages, and killing people? Which, again, does not jive with Power Rangers at all. And as I've said within my previous video when Ninja Steel was announced that they were going to base off of Ninja, my real hope was that they were going to call it Power Rangers Shinobi. That they would take this opportunity to actually educate the audience, to actually say, okay, we're doing a show. It's about ninjas. We may not have any Japanese people in there, but it's going to be about ninjas, so we're actually going to tell you what a ninja is. I don't need an entire history lesson for the show, but if you can explain, maybe something to the effect of, we're from a ninja clan of assassins, but over time we've changed with the times and we've migrated to America, or whatever lame excuse you want to go ahead and use to get in there, at least explain what a ninja is to give people context and understanding of where our characters are coming from. But they're not going to do that. They're calling it Ninja Steel, and the plot has something to do with outer space monsters. Now, how does that tie into feudal Japan and mercenaries? Nothing. Nothing that I'm aware of, anyway, unless you believe ancient aliens theories. And if that's the case, go watch the History Channel. But I don't get it. That's ultimately what I'm coming down. I don't understand it. Why does Saban not want to acknowledge the Japanese roots, and why does it not want to talk about it within the show? Because you know what? It's great that you have PSA infomercials about bullying, about not doing drugs, about eating healthy and getting active, and that's all great. But it would also be nice to have a history lesson about things they don't teach us. Because you know what? I didn't do drugs because of the Power Rangers. I didn't do drugs because they had the DARE campaign in the early 90s, and I just was told it was wrong, didn't do it, that's fine. I didn't have to worry about bullying or anything because apparently I'm the only person in the world that has never been bullied when I was in school, because that was not a thing that I had to deal with. And again, I guess I lived in an idyllic time in early 90s Kentucky or whatever. And of course, right food, that's stuff they teach you in school. They teach you about the food pyramid, which of course is now obsolete, but of course they teach you about nutrition in school. And of course they have this thing called PE, or physical education, where it teaches you to, get out and be active. I don't need my shows giving me PSAs about things that they've already taught in school, but I would like to go ahead and learn about things that they don't teach us in school. Looking back at it now, I would have loved to have learned about Japanese history when I was elementary school, or middle school, or frickin' high school for that matter. You can't call it world history when you only focus on Europe and how everything relates to America. That's pretty much why we have this self-centered, jingoistic thing going on in America, is because we believe that, everything is about us because the history books and world history tell us that we are the center of the universe. And it's not even like Power Rangers or Saban is excising all things Japanese to promote some sort of American agenda, liberal, conservative, or whatever it's going to go ahead and be, because they don't interject anything American to the series to replace the Japanese. They just whitewash it, which is much worse, Okay, I think I'm done with my tirade here, because this video is running long, and I know most of you don't like to stay for this long on my videos. Again, I don't need a history lesson. I just want them to acknowledge it. I want them to bring it up into the show, and I hope that when we get Ninja Steel, that it's not about a bunch of white ninjas fighting aliens, okay? I hope it's grounded in some sort of reality, which I know is kind of odd for a science fiction fantasy series, but it would be real nice in the first episode if we were told what a ninja is, and why these ninjas are not like that. Because again, in the ninja, we are shinobi, but we do not hide, which again is something that they actually do, and of course, the ninja, that's what distinguishes them from other ninjas. And boy, is it going to be interesting to see what they do with that Gold Ranger, because you know what? The Gold Ranger, who is ostensibly going to be the American character, I think no matter how you cast this, he will have to be American in some way. That's a good opportunity to explain to us what a ninja is, what a shinobi is, because point of view character, have it explained and explain it to the audience and gain credibility. But that's where we are. Okay, so I know I've gone on for a while, but what do you guys think about this? Do you think I'm right? Think I'm wrong? I know that's kind of an odd question to ask, but where do you think I kind of fall into this? What do you think about what Saban has done from Japan with Japanese culture? And for my Japanese fans out there who are actually listening to us, and I know some of you do exist, because I've checked my analytics and whatnot. Um, what do you think about Power Rangers basically excising your entire history just so they don't have to explain it or acknowledge its origins? I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave me in the comments below. And thank you guys for listening. Next week we'll have something just as interesting, maybe, but I promise to not go on a tirade. Well, promise. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.